Hello there, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well and that you had a good St. Patrick's Day, most likely you are seeing this after St. Patrick's Day, so I hope you saw it and enjoy, or I hope you had a good day. Let's put it that way. And can you believe that means we're on the downward side of March? Seems like we just had New Year's Day, let alone getting ready for April, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, today I've got a quote about reality that comes from a physicist. Now, you're going to think that a physicist of all people is going to be cut and dry and scientific and that reality is reality. And contrary to what a lot of people think, no, it's not really. Now, let me give you the quote first, and then we'll go into where I'm coming from with this concept. And this was David Bohm, I'm guessing. Bohm is in mother. So I don't really know how he's going to pronounce it. He's dead, so I can't ask him. But he's a physicist. And again, the comment he made was reality is what we take to be true. What we believe determines what we take to be true. And what we take to be true is our reality, which seems a little roundabout, which will make sense more or less, maybe perhaps could be when you read it. I'm not necessarily saying, and some of you are going to say that something like, well, night is day and dead is alive. And well, yeah, sort of, but it depends on a lot on how you define your terms. And that's where we run into trouble. Let's take day and night. If it's the beginning of January and you live above the Arctic Circle, what's day? It might be the time of day may be day, but do you see sunlight? So how do you define day? What's reality in that particular case? I guess if at this moment, well, if we're living in the northern hemisphere, but you happen to be in the southern hemisphere and way back south, maybe Tierra del Fuego, I'm not sure how much sun they get right at this particular moment. I've got a niece. She's 5'9". Her husband is 6'4". Their children, are taller than she is. So my 5'9" niece, who by most standards is going to be considered tall in Western culture, is the shrimp in the family. What's reality? I mean, if you're 5 feet tall, but you're teaching a bunch of kindergarten students, you're huge. So this is kind of where I'm coming from with the idea of reality, because many of the things that we see and take to be true, because we see them from our perspective. If you are 5 feet tall and you see yourself with other people who are taller than you are, you're going to consider yourself short, but you don't stop to think about the people who are shorter than you are who think that you're large. You begin to see where I'm coming from on this. Now, this becomes much more important is when we're looking at things like, I'm stupid, I'm slow, I'm never going to learn this, I can't do this. What does that mean? Let's just say you're a musician and you want to, make records or be on stage and be famous or something like that. Do you know the difference between the key of G and the key of C? If you do, you're one step further than people who don't. What you're doing in most cases when you say, I'm not good, or I can't do this, or I'm never going to get someplace, is you're comparing yourself to somebody who's way more advanced than you are. So if you happen to be, say, 18 and you want to be, in a rock band someplace else, but you're comparing yourself to somebody who's been practicing the guitar or whatever instrument you're playing longer than you've been alive, is that really beneficial to you? It's more beneficial to look at things from the standpoint of, where am I now? Where do I want to be? Am I comparing myself to people in a sense favorably? In other words, if you want to be somebody who's famous and on stage, maybe you saw somebody last night who was doing a really good job in front of thousands of people. What did they do to get there? How long have they been practicing? What do they practice? In other words, do they practice their scales? Do they memorize the pieces? Do they go over the pieces every single time, every day? Odds are that they practice much more than you do. So the thing about it is to take a look at is, where do you want to go? What do you want to be, and how, in a sense, famous or infamous, depending on the case, of course, depending on what you want, do you want? How do I get there? If you want to be a musician, you need to practice. You need to do something. Do you know anybody who's good and can coach you or teach you? A lot depends on your responses, what your resources are. In some cases, you're going to have more resources than other people. If you're the only one in your family who plays an instrument and nobody else knows the difference between middle C and, a lower F, you're going to have to find different resources. If you're in a family in which there's several people who are, say, working musicians, they say play in a band or they play someplace else, then you're in a better position to gain some skills than somebody else. But to take a look at what's available to you, where do you want to go, and what do you want to do to get there? If you don't want to practice every day for hours at a time, odds are you're not going to become a professional. Does that make sense? So that what your reality is, and then becomes, is I'm at this point. These are my circumstances. And then you take a look at that particular situation and decide where you want to go from there. Do you want to move off of that? Do you want to be, say, if you're a musician and you're just perfectly happy being able to come up with, melodies during birthday parties and holidays and things like that so people can hang around and the family can hang around and sing, and that's all you want to do, you're probably in great shape. If you want more than that, then you're going to have to figure out where you want to go from there. What is your reality? Don't hold it to some kind of ideal that's not where you are at this moment, because you're comparing it to somebody else who's in a totally different situation than you are. Because all that's going to do is get you depressed and you're not going to get anywhere. So if you're saying, well, I don't do as well in math as so-and-so, well, yeah, but does that person have more skills in math? Does that person practice the math more than you do? It's entirely possible that that person spends more time on homework and going over the problems where you don't see that person than you do. Maybe it's just that person puts more time in it. You may be, in a sense, better, if you will, at math because you can do it without putting a lot of time in it than the other person who's putting hours into it and wishing that they could take it as easily as you do. So again, that's where I'm looking for with what's reality, because you're going to make something true if you visualize that it is true. If you're going to say, I can't do this because I'm no good at it, is there somebody else looking around at you looking and say, gee, I wish I could do that? All of us have had those moments in which somebody compliments us because we did something well and we blow it off. Oh, this whole thing, anybody can do it. And you're sitting there and the other person's looking, I can't do that. I can't do that in a million years. But you blow it off because it comes to you naturally. Think about the last time. There's got to be something, probably a dozen different things that you do well, that you blow off because you do it well. If you took those things and worked at them, you could be really, really good at them, most likely. Question is do you want to? Is it something you want to work at? There are other people who are desperately working to be as good as you are. So the idea of where you are at math, history, studying, your job, parenting, whatever, is really going to depend on where you take your focus and what you're comparing yourself to. And if you're, say, like worried about being a parent and you're comparing just yourself to somebody who goes on TV and talks about this or writes a blog or some such thing like that, you don't necessarily know what their home life is like, because it's entirely possible that somebody is writing about being a good parent, but when it comes right home, their kids are probably complaining and, they're making a lot of things out to be positive that really aren't true. You don't know. Take it from where you are and what you know and build on that. If you want your reality to be better, if you want to be good at something, you've got to come from where you are right now and decide where you want to go. Let's again, since I started with parenting, where do you want to go with parenting? And that could change. What you define as being a good parent, what does that mean? You ask 10 parents what it means as being a good parent, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. So if you want your children to come and trust you and tell you things, that's one thing. If you don't want to yell at your kids every 10 minutes, that's another thing. Each of those two people have an idea of what a good parent is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to work on both things or the opposite things. It depends on what they want and how they define being a good parent. So I hope this makes sense. So figure out, where are you right now with whatever it is that you want to be, whatever. Identify 10 things in your life and say, okay, where am I right now? Where do I want to be? What do I need to get to be where I want to be? And am I willing to do those things? And if you're not, you may not want to, think about that. If you're saying, I want to be here, and these are the things I know and I want, what are my resources? Now, this may be limiting, but I dare say that you've got more resources available to you than you realize. It's just that you probably haven't spent a lot of time looking for them or asking around and asking help for them. Okay? So figure out where you need to go, where you want to go, if you want to get there, and then create a plan for it. I hope this makes sense. I hope you found that helpful. And if you found that helpful, or if you know somebody else that would find it helpful, please share it. And do give me a comment and let me know whether you found it helpful, or if you want to ask a question or complain and tell me about something else. I really would appreciate it. So I'm going to challenge you this week to think about where you want to be and see if you can create somewhat of a plan of where you want to go. Because if you know that you've advanced in that and say you're going to be further ahead next year than you are right now, that's probably what's going to make you more pleased than if you're just going to spend the rest of your life complaining because you're not good at something. Okay? So have a good week, and we will talk to you later.